Greetings, citizens from the rolling hills of the bluegrass. The Nick Cannon issue. It may perplex some people trying to figure out exactly where in the world would someone get these ideas, trying to come up with why. Why would you go down this route? Because humanity has done this. We've done this racially based idea of supremacy. And it should put to rest in everyone's mind that the very idea that you have any racism, that it's not possible in the black community. Right? This very idea that racism is just a construct of white people, and that it's impossible for anyone else to be racist. This right here is an example of it, because he is going to old tropes. This very idea that it's because of your skin color that there's some kind of genetic superiority. And that this reason is made manifest by the fact that historically the whites, this giant conglomeration of people that compose hundreds and hundreds of particular ethnicities, cultures, that they're in and of themselves just one giant blob. The same thing that when people say blacks or Africans or Asians or Native Americans or Indians, if you wish, that somehow the genetics play a factor. And they can to a degree, but it approaches almost spirituality. Almost mythic Olympus style goddom. And it's just, it's absolutely insane that it would go that far. But we're there. And finally someone of a large notoriety, someone who is known by many, has finally stepped forward and really put forth some of this. And people are shocked by it. Totally shocked. It's been there. It's been there for decades. And why now we're just coming to this is part and parcel because you actually have someone who is of national importance, who actually has it's someone who is visible to the whole of society and is finally able to shine a light on this. And it pains me, especially since, Professor Griff, you always knew that he was a controversial figure and that he had said some things in the past, but you'd always hope that in some instances some of these people would come around finally, and especially as old as Professor Griff is, you would hopefully realize that some of these things are just not real. They're the great figments of our own amazing imagination. And they're supported by people who are charismatic. They command a great amount of the stage where you're just trying to figure out, wow, how do they do that? How do they make people follow them? And there's a magnetism. And one of the people that you will hear Professor Griff talk about is Dr. Khalid Muhammad, who passed away in the late 90s. But he was a renegade Nation of Islam preacher, pastor. And it's this type of person. And if you go back and you listen to his rhetoric, from then. Standing in front of the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., you're going to hear the same refrains over and over again. And before his falling out with the Nation of Islam, the same thing comes out of Louis Farrakhan, who many in some ways have been trying to redeem. And everyone can be redeemed, but they have to be the one to be redeeming themselves. You can't do that for them. You can say, oh, they're a great person, they're wonderful, but then if they go out and do terrible things, then all of your praise for them is muted. It's unnecessary because they've just totally undone everything you've said. So, Louis Farrakhan, Khalid Muhammad, and then if you're looking for other things to finally figure out exactly where all of this is coming from, you're going to get into some very, very murky water very quickly. Follow them, then look up Kemet, Kemet, which is the ancient name, they say, of Egypt. Now, what's very funny and striking is that you have American blacks, African Americans, claiming a right to or a past heritage to ancient Egypt. Most Africans that we know of come from the Western Africa, around Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Mali, those areas, which are so far removed. In our modern times, we don't realize just how far away these places, well, just the places in general, are from one another. The distance that it would take. Yes, there may have been trade, there may have been some cultural exchange, but the idea that someone from the 17th century Africa on the coast would have any real knowledge of the things happening in Egypt, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles away, and then be able to claim anything that culture produced as something they have a right to, it's maddening. Because if any other person did that, if any other culture tried to even come near doing that, you know exactly what it's going to sound like. You know what the refrain would be. Cultural appropriation. That's precisely what this is. It's appropriation. It's taking something you did not create. Not even this, if this was within this, the same 100 year, the same century, you could see something. Even if it was minuscule, you could see some type of, we have family there or something like that. You could understand that. But instead, you're talking thousands of years. Thousands. In the time scale, it's an amount of time we can't even fathom. We have problems remembering what happened 50 years ago and 150 years ago. We have problems getting accuracy on that history. And now you want to tell me that 1,000 years ago, 2,000, 3, 4, and 5,000 years ago, you, an ocean and a continent away, have some claim on the history of Egypt? It's a level of hubris. Well, not even hubris. It's a level of just self-righteousness that's so hard to even fathom, to even come to degrees with. It's just insane, absolutely insane. But those are the things. Nick Cannon, Professor Griff, but then Khalid Mohammed, Louis Farrakhan. Look up Kemet, 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 and you will find where all of this has come from. And something to be looked into. It's not just the Nation of Islam in this level or this sect of religious belief that this comes from. Do you all remember the Covington Boys, which hits close to home from the Bluegrass? Those boys were interacting with who? The Hebrew Israelites. And that's a whole nother can of worms, a whole nother set of things that you've got to realize. That it's not just an Islamic idea, but it's also a Christian idea. There's a Christian sect that believes in a lot of this, anything else that would be considered a pseudoscience, but might actually be more like quasi-science, because we do destroy the definition between pseudo and quasi. There's enough science in there to make you go, that's quasi. And then there's not enough science, that's pseudo. False, partial. Just a little bugbear there of mine. So where and why has this arisen? Because the social climate is accepting of it. The social climate, I really believe he thought that with everything going on, that now is the time to trot this out. And that's the problem. None of this has anything to do with Black Lives Matter. But all of it runs parallel. Things don't have to connect. Things don't have to be bosom buddies. They can run parallel to one another. So look into it. Try to find as much information as you can, because that is all this life is. We are human information gathering systems. And if you do not have the information, if you do not look and be a part of the present, be relevant in your own life, look around, then you will be pushed in directions that when you do come to terms with things, you're going to go, well, how in the world did I get here? Where did I come from? Where was I? And why am I here now? Well, you didn't look around. You didn't see what was going on. Pay attention. Watch. Because people will tell you what they believe if you give them enough time. And that's why free speech is so important. Give people time, and you will learn who they are. Make no assumptions. Listen.